Hi, this is Kirby Sommers, and I welcome you to the Epstein Project podcast. Today is January 8th, 2021. It's 2 days after what happened at the White House, um, where basically it was a takeover attempt, kind of similar to what happened during the Civil War. It's called sedition. And so today I'm going to discuss with you uh, how this affects Ghislaine Maxwell and the current case against her. But I'm going to start with explaining a few things to you, including what sedition means. And before I get started, I want to thank all of you for your incredible support, for allowing me a platform from which to speak as a person who has survived sexual assault. Numerous, it's not just one, it's numerous. And what happened at the Capitol is the visual representation of what happens when a person, a child, a man, or a woman, is sexually assaulted. Visually, that is a good comparison, if you will, to what happens to us when someone invades not just our space, but our body. So once again, thank you for your, I'm a little sad today, obviously, because of what happened. And so I'm going to ask you to bear with me as I try to explain the ramifications of what happened and how it will affect Ghislaine Maxwell. However, I do want to thank those of you who have joined my Patreon, and those of you who have joined my Epstein Project newsletter, those of you who remain loyal and amazing on Twitter, and those of you who continue to follow and keep the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell case alive. Because if it weren't for your voice, the case would not be a case. I've said this before, I will say it again. Jeffrey Epstein's victims did not have a voice. Their voice was trampled upon. They were called all sorts of names. Their allegations were dismissed by mainstream media for years and years. They lost court after court after court case because this is a very sensitive case. It is connected, in my opinion, and the opinion of others, to intelligence agencies. And therefore, once again, if it weren't for your voice amplifying the voice of the Epstein survivors who have stepped forward valiantly to tell the world about their experience and to try to get a semblance of justice, the case would be buried, it would be gone. Ghislaine Maxwell would not be in jail. Okay, that said, I want to begin with explaining to you what sedition is, because sedition is what happened at the White House when Donald Trump's supporters basically broke through the barriers, entered the White House. Some of them were there were 2 bombs that were found. There are 5 people who lost their lives, including, from today's reports, 1 police officer. More people would have lost their lives, but we did lose 5 lives, and everyone's life is important, my God. To lose 5 lives. This is not 1812 people. We're in 2021. And things like this do not normally happen in the United States. This is a day that, and I'm going to use this phrase because it's the only one that fits. It was a day that will live in infamy. So what is sedition? So seditious conspiracy is a crime under United States law. And I'm going to just read to you what it is, so maybe it'll just sound better if I read it to you rather than I trying to explain it to you. It is two or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States who conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to take, prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof. And the response to sedition, which is what happened at the White House, and it was inspired and put into force by Donald Trump's refusal to give up office. He lost the election. I'm not going to argue with anyone who continues to try to argue this point. I'm simply going to I'm going to block you. That's just bottom line. I'm going to block you. But that he incited this. People committed an act that by law, each one of those persons should be fined and imprisoned for not more than 20 years and or both of these things. That's what we're facing. It's my understanding that not one person has been arrested. Not one person has been arrested for what happened at the White House. 5 people dead. Okay. So the way that, well, first, let me just say that during the calls for Donald Trump to be impeached for the second time, which would be the very first time in the history of the United States where a president is impeached not once, but twice. First time, he has now prepared a list of additional persons to pardon. He has put himself, according to, I believe it was a Wall Street Journal article, but it's probably in all of the major mainstream news media outlets at this point. He's included himself as someone he's going to pardon. Well, I heard through a reliable source that Ghislaine Maxwell is on that list. Okay, if she's on that list, then the trial will never happen. The case is closed, and they're going to want us kids to get out of the way and move on with our lives. However, if her name is not on that list, I will tell you that Joe Biden, and by the way, I'm always tweeting out that child sex abuse and rape crosses political lines. It crosses boundary lines. We've seen at this point, most of you have been following this case for years. You've heard about other cases in other countries. So it's not just something that's limited to the United States, but there's a pattern of child sex abuse and rape and sexual slavery in other countries. And this has been an ongoing sort of a secret for well over 100 years. I brought up a case on Twitter last year about a case that happened in England with another prince, and it happened in the 1800s, in the late 1800s. So this is not new, and it's not just the United States, and it's, again, it crosses political lines. So whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, whoever is in the White House has knowledge of and or participated in child sex trafficking and or rape of an individual, and they have knowledge of this. Now, these things are usually carried out by the intelligence agencies of each country. So to get back to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't endorse Joe Biden. I don't endorse Donald Trump. I am not an endorser of the men who sit in the White House Oval Office. I'm just not. I think I know too much, and I've been exposed to too much. And as such, I'm not somebody who blindly follows someone just because they've been able to rise up through the political ladder, which is fully corrupt. But to each his own. If whatever you believe, you believe. I'm not here to change your mind one way or the other. However, what happened as a result of the events of January 6th, with the storming of the White House by Donald Trump's supporters, who all broke the law, is that when the power is transferred on January 20th to Joe Biden, who becomes the 46th president of the United States of America, Ghislaine Maxwell's case will now come under his attorney general's auspices, if you will, based on the fact that what happened again 2 days ago on the 6th has created among not just those of us who live within the United States, but it has had a ricochet effect on people in other countries. So it's sort of similar to what everybody felt post 9/11, where it's like everybody's in a state of confusion. There's grief, there's sadness. People start suffering from insomnia. People have flashbacks. And or there's just a numbness where you don't feel anything. There's also a sense of hopelessness. So this is the kind of emotional turmoil that happens when there is a catastrophe. This is a catastrophic response. This is how our psyche responds when there's a catastrophic catastrophe. I mean, like I'm repeating myself, but this is what Americans are feeling, and people in other countries are feeling it to a lesser extent, but they're feeling it as well. With that as a base for Joe Biden, Ghislaine Maxwell's trial will now take a different direction because he has to remain cognizant of the fact that Americans are in a fragile state with a heightened sense of awareness, and that we're going to be looking at everything sort of, we're going to be watching everything he says, everything he does. And those of us who have been part of the Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, I don't know what to call it. I mean, we're at the forefront. We're exposing, we're looking, we're reading, we're sharing. We're right up there with who he has to be worried about as an audience. So, whereas initially it was, to me, almost clear to see that whether Trump was sitting in the office or whether it was going to be Biden, the Ghislaine Maxwell case was going to have the same outcome, which initially was there's going to be no case. there's going to be no case. It'll be gone for one reason or another. And if there is a case that happens in the summer when it's scheduled, then it's going to be very sort of like censored. Censored in the same way that the Iran-Contra hearings were censored, where some information was considered too sensitive to discuss. And so he's going to have to do things a little bit more transparently, just to hold on to the semblance of peace and order that needs to happen in order for Americans to feel secure again in their elected officials. So again, if Trump does not pardon Ghislaine Maxwell on January the 19th, one day before he is removed from office because a new president gets to sit in the office on January 20th, he will have to go hard on Maxwell. That's the only option for him. He will have to go hard on Maxwell. And so while before the 6th, I did not believe Ghislaine Maxwell was going to give up names like people think she's been giving up names. She's not. Jean-Luc Brunel was not arrested in France because of something Ghislaine Maxwell said in New York. That did not happen. There had already been, just to give you a background on this, an investigation for well over a year in France on Jean-Luc Brunel. So that's an independent case. Ghislaine Maxwell has not been speaking. She's not been doing any of that. However, that's going to change because going forward, we now live in a different world. Our world has been changed. We're no longer living pre-January 6th. That world is gone. We're in a new place. Joe Biden has to acknowledge it. He's going to acknowledge it. And one of those ways is how the Ghislaine Maxwell trial is going to proceed. And that's going to include getting her to name names. Nothing less will be acceptable at this point. He has to appease Americans and, frankly, people worldwide who have been following this case. I'm curious to know if you agree with my analysis, because I don't see any other way for him. He cannot afford to anger any more people. We're angered enough. I think we're all experiencing some type of post-traumatic stress disorder. This is normal. This is normal. If you're feeling like this, don't beat yourself up. It's normal. We will get through this. I hate cliches, but sometimes a cliche is the only way to explain that we got through the 9/11. It was so challenging. I myself lost some friends in 9/11, but we will get through it. We have formed some friendships on Twitter. I know I have, and I'm very grateful to those of you who have become my friends. You were people who were strangers to me previous to my starting to work on the Jeffrey Epstein case. I have become close to some of Jeffrey Epstein's survivors and also some of Harvey Weinstein's survivors. I have communicated with Tara Reid. I've communicated with a lot of the women who have been trespassed against because we're all in the same position. And so I thank you for your friendship. It's valuable, but the friendship that we've all formed, that is going to provide a healing, sort of like a comfort level healing place. And it's interesting because I know that there are some men who work on the Epstein case, and while they can and do report what's going on via mainstream media or what they see on Twitter, I think that women still have something that men, just by the fact of being a guy, that most men just don't have, and that's the ability to nurture. We are born with the ability to nurture, and it's going to be the voices, our voices, the voices of the women who are going to provide a place of healing for not just Americans, but for the world. And so, we've got sort of like this human chain of healing, and we just have to continue to be focus on the positive, not focus on the negative. Know that it's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. If you have a bad day, okay, that's fine. Tomorrow will be better. So I'm just curious to know. I'd love to hear your feedback on what you think of my analysis regarding how Joe Biden is going to move forward with the case, the United States case against Ghislaine Maxwell. As I said before, she's going to have to start naming names. It's going to move a little bit differently. There's going to be a little bit more transparency because he's in a place where he cannot anger the American public or the world at large. Donald Trump took all of that. Whatever juice was left in that little container of let's push the people to the max, that's gone. That's on empty. There is no more gas in that gas tank. There just isn't. So there's always, as I say a lot, there's always a silver lining. And so I'm going to look at what happened on January 6th as, yes, an atrocity, but it has a silver lining. And for those of us who are following the Ghislaine Maxwell case, the silver lining is going to be seen in that case. Again, I'm going to add, if Donald Trump does not pardon her, then we're going to have Ghislaine Maxwell pay for her crimes. And it's only 6 things she has been charged with, 2 of which are perjury. But I think the law is now going to come down harsher on Maxwell, and we are going to hear some names. So again, I'm going to say, if you have not liked this video, please do so, because when you like a video, it makes it possible for other people to find it and like it. If you have not subscribed to my Epstein Project newsletter, please go to my website, kirbysommers.com. There's Epstein Project. Click on that. Look for the subscribe. I want to thank all of you who have been become paid subscribers, because you get more of my newsletters than other people do. You get all of them. And it continues to help me work on this case. Also, I'm going to be hosting an Ask Me Anything on my Patreon. My Patreon can be found, well, I guess if you just type in Kirby Sommers on Patreon, you'll find me. So if you haven't joined it, please do. I'll post a link on this at the bottom so that you'll find it. And, thank you guys for everything. Your emotional support has been incredible, and I'm here hoping that I can give you back some of that emotional support that you have given me, and that you have given, Jeffrey Epstein's victims, and that you continue to give each other who comes forward and says, you know what, I was a victim too, and this is what happened to me. Let's continue to share our stories. Let's continue to support each other. There's love in the air. Love will never die. And okay, I'm going to just thank you for listening, and we will do this again soon. Bye-bye.